The accidental discovery. The infiltration mission. Lieutenant Crix adjusted his cloaking device as he materialized inside what humans called a residential dwelling. His green, scaled skin shimmered briefly before the camouflage technology kicked in, rendering him nearly invisible. The Galactic Council had sent him on a simple reconnaissance mission: observe human domestic behavior and report back. Nothing too complicated, or so he thought. The dwelling was eerily quiet, filled with strange geometric furniture and peculiar decorative objects. Crix pulled out his data recorder, a small crystalline device that hummed softly in his three-fingered hand. Personal log, Day 7 of human observation, he whispered in his native tongue. The creatures appear to have abandoned their nest. Beginning interior survey. Strange human architecture. As Crix moved through the corridors, he marveled at the inefficiency of human construction. Separate chambers for different activities, walls that blocked natural airflow, and most puzzling of all, chambers with no apparent purpose. His large, amber eyes scanned each room methodically, cataloging everything for his report. The first chamber contained soft rectangular platforms elevated from the floor. Possible sleeping quarters, he muttered, noting how humans seemed to prefer elevation over the ground-level rest his species enjoyed. The second chamber held various food preparation devices, which made logical sense even to his alien mind. But it was the third chamber that stopped him cold. The discovery of horror. Crix pushed open a door and stepped into a small, white-tiled room. His breathing apparatus, a small device implanted behind his ear slits, began working overtime as he processed what he was seeing. In the center of the room sat the most horrifying contraption he had ever witnessed in his 43 years of interstellar travel. By the ancient stars, he gasped, his voice translator struggling to find equivalent words in the human language. What manner of torture device is this? Before him stood a large, white, oval-shaped container, clearly designed to hold a struggling victim. The sides were perfectly smooth, offering no chance of escape once someone was trapped inside. Worse still, metal fixtures protruded from one end, obviously designed to deliver some form of liquid torment to the helpless prisoner. The evidence mounts. Crix approached the device cautiously, his natural curiosity overriding his initial terror. His scientific training at the Galactic Academy kicked in as he began documenting every horrific detail. The container was approximately 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, perfectly sized to contain an adult human. The interior was gleaming white, easy to clean after whatever gruesome activities took place within. The humans have concealed this torture chamber within their private dwellings, he recorded, his voice shaking slightly. This suggests widespread, systematic use of this device. The entire species may be more barbaric than our initial assessments indicated. He noticed drain holes at the bottom of the container, clearly designed to remove bodily fluids after interrogation sessions. The metal fixtures at one end could obviously deliver scalding or freezing liquids, depending on the desired level of torment. Most disturbing of all, the entire apparatus was positioned beneath what appeared to be viewing ports in the wall, covered by reflective surfaces that could be adjusted to observe the victim's suffering. The shocking revelation. As Crix continued his investigation, he discovered additional evidence of the human's cruel nature. Bottles of mysterious liquids lined shelves around the torture chamber, each labeled with incomprehensible symbols. Some containers held thick, viscous substances that could only be designed to make escape even more difficult for victims. The sophistication of this torture system is beyond anything in our databases, he whispered into his recorder. These humans have elevated prisoner torment to an art form. Each dwelling appears to contain at least one of these chambers, suggesting that torture is not limited to military or governmental facilities, but is practiced by ordinary citizens. The sound of approaching danger. Suddenly, Crix heard the unmistakable sound of human footsteps approaching the dwelling. His cloaking device was good, but not perfect, and he needed to complete his investigation quickly. He took rapid measurements of the torture chamber, noting every detail that might be useful for the Galactic Council's assessment of human civilization. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the melodic vocalizations humans made when communicating. Crix recognized this as what humans called singing, though he had never understood why they would make such sounds voluntarily. Now, given his discovery of their torture chambers, he wondered if this vocalization was some form of psychological preparation for the horrors they were about to inflict. The narrow escape. As the dwelling's entrance portal opened, Crix made his final observations. He noticed that the torture chamber had been positioned strategically near other facilities, including what appeared to be a smaller water-dispensing device and a large reflective surface. This suggested that the torture process was part of a larger ritual, possibly involving forced viewing of one's own suffering. The human voices grew closer, and Crix could hear them discussing mundane matters like work and dinner. The casual nature of their conversation, combined with the presence of such a horrific device in their personal space, chilled him to his core. These beings could torture someone in the morning and then calmly discuss their evening meal plans. The urgent report. Crix activated his emergency transport beacon, knowing he had gathered enough evidence to shock the Galactic Council into immediate action. As his molecular structure began to dissolve for transport, he took one last look at the white torture chamber and shuddered. Emergency transmission to Council Command, he spoke rapidly into his communicator as the transport beam engaged. Human species classification must be immediately upgraded to extremely dangerous. They possess sophisticated torture technology in every dwelling. Recommend immediate intervention before they discover our observation missions. As Lieutenant Crix materialized aboard his scout ship, orbiting safely above Earth's atmosphere, he couldn't shake the image of that horrible white prison from his mind. The humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and he had the evidence to prove it. The galaxy needed to know the truth about these seemingly innocent creatures and their tiny water prisons. Little did he know that his discovery would set in motion a series of events that would become the most embarrassing misunderstanding in galactic diplomatic history. The scientific analysis. The emergency assembly. Professor Yendak's tentacles writhed nervously as he reviewed Lieutenant Crix's shocking report for the 5th time. The massive alien scientist, standing nearly 8 feet tall with his bulbous head and multiple appendages, had seen many disturbing things during his centuries of xenobiology research. But nothing had prepared him for the evidence now displayed across the holographic screens in his laboratory. "Computer, enhance image section 47, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of authority that came with being the galaxy's leading expert on primitive species behavior. The torture device, what humans apparently called a bathtub, rotated slowly in three-dimensional detail before his compound eyes. The Emergency Scientific Council had assembled within hours of Crix's transmission. Representatives from 12 different species filled the circular chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses. All eyes were focused on Professor Yendak as he prepared to deliver his preliminary analysis. The horrifying evidence. "Colleagues," Professor Yendak began, his primary speaking tentacle gesturing toward the massive display screen, "what we see before us represents perhaps the most sophisticated torture methodology ever discovered in the Outer Rim territories. The humans have not only perfected individual torment, but they have integrated it seamlessly into their domestic lifestyle." The assembled scientists shifted uncomfortably in their various seating apparatus. Commander Blix, a crystalline being from the Andromeda sector, chimed in with a sound like breaking glass. "Professor, surely you're not suggesting that an entire species has evolved around torture practices?" "I'm afraid the evidence is undeniable," Yendak replied, manipulating the hologram with his secondary tentacles. "Observe the precision of the construction. The smooth, inescapable walls. The strategic placement of liquid dispensers. The drain systems designed for cleanup. This is not the work of a few sadistic individuals, but a systematic approach to prisoner management. The liquid torture analysis." Dr. Flemness, a gaseous entity contained within a specialized environmental suit, spoke through his translation device. "What of these mysterious substances found surrounding the torture chambers?" Have you analyzed their composition? Professor Yendak's excitement was palpable as he switched to a new display showing various bottles and containers. This is where it becomes truly diabolical, colleagues. The humans have developed an entire arsenal of torture enhancement chemicals. Some appear designed to make the victim's skin more sensitive to temperature changes. Others seem to create a slippery coating, making escape impossible. He highlighted several containers in succession. This substance, labeled bubble bath, appears to create a foam that would obscure the victim's vision while simultaneously making movement treacherous. And this, he focused on a pink bottle, labeled shampoo, contains compounds that would cause intense irritation if it contacted the ocular organs. The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. These humans weren't just torturing prisoners, they were making it an elaborate, scientific process. The psychological warfare discovery. But perhaps most disturbing, Professor Yendak continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that nonetheless carried throughout the chamber, is the psychological component. Notice how each torture chamber is equipped with highly reflective surfaces, positioned to force the victim to observe their own suffering. The hologram shifted to show the bathroom mirror, and several of the assembled scientists made sounds of distress. The victim cannot escape seeing their own torment, Yendak explained. This represents a level of psychological sophistication that suggests the humans have been perfecting these techniques for generations. Commander Blix's crystalline form flickered with agitation. Professor, how widespread is this practice? Are we looking at isolated incidents or systematic implementation? According to Lieutenant Crix's reconnaissance data, these torture chambers appear in virtually every human dwelling. Not just military installations or government facilities, but private residences. This suggests that torture is not only accepted in human society, but encouraged at the family level. The ritual aspect. Dr. Flemnis's gaseous form swirled within his containment suit. The placement of these devices within what appear to be private chambers suggests ritualistic behavior. Could this be part of their religious practices? Professor Yendak's tentacles curled with excitement. An excellent observation, Dr. Flemnis. The evidence suggests that humans engage in regular torture rituals, possibly daily. The presence of what they call towels, absorbent fabrics clearly designed to clean up after torture sessions, supports this theory. He manipulated the display to show various bathroom accessories. These implements, which they call loofahs and washcloths, appear designed to scrub the victim's skin until it becomes raw and sensitive. The humans have even developed specialized tools for different types of skin abrasion. The temperature torture theory. Computer, display thermal analysis of the liquid delivery system, Yendak commanded. The hologram shifted to show a cross-section of human plumbing. The humans have engineered their torture chambers to deliver liquids at varying temperatures, from scalding hot to freezing cold. The victim has no control over these temperature changes, making the experience even more terrifying. The assembled scientists watched in horror as the professor demonstrated how the human faucet system could alternate between extreme temperatures. This explains the presence of what humans call hot water heaters in their dwellings. These are not comfort devices, as we initially assumed, but sophisticated torture equipment designed to ensure a steady supply of scalding liquid. The shocking conclusion. As Professor Yendak concluded his presentation, the chamber fell into stunned silence. The implications were staggering. An entire species had apparently evolved around systematic torture practices, integrating them so completely into their daily lives that they considered them normal. Colleagues, Yendak announced solemnly, I recommend immediate classification of the human species as a Class A galactic threat. Their torture methodology is so advanced that they represent a danger not just to individual prisoners, but to the psychological stability of any species that encounters them. Commander Blix's crystalline form dimmed with concern. What do you recommend as our next course of action, Professor? We need more data, Yendak replied. I propose sending a diplomatic team to investigate further. If these humans are indeed as dangerous as our evidence suggests, the Galactic Council needs to know immediately. The safety of the entire galaxy may depend on understanding the full extent of their torture capabilities. Little did Professor Yendak know that his scientific analysis would soon lead to the most embarrassing diplomatic incident in galactic history, as the truth about human bathing habits remained completely hidden behind layers of xenobiological misunderstanding. The cultural misunderstanding. The diplomatic mission. Ambassador Tilvan smoothed his iridescent feathers as he reviewed the briefing materials one final time. The tall, bird-like alien had served as the Galactic Federation's chief diplomatic envoy for over 2 decades, successfully negotiating peace treaties between warring species and facilitating first contact with dozens of civilizations. But nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for the horror show he was about to investigate. Ambassador, his aide, Secretary Vorth, buzzed nervously through his insectoid translator. Are you certain this direct approach is wise? The humans' torture capabilities appear far more advanced than anything we've encountered. Tilvan's large, golden eyes reflected his determination. Secretary, we cannot make proper diplomatic contact without understanding their culture fully. If torture is indeed central to human society, we must approach this delicately. Perhaps they can be reasoned with, shown a more civilized path. The diplomatic vessel Harmony's wing approached Earth's atmosphere with all possible stealth technology engaged. Their mission was clear: establish contact with human authorities and negotiate for the cessation of their barbaric torture practices before the Galactic Council was forced to take more drastic action. The First Contact Protocol. Dr. Harrison Weber, Earth's leading xenobiologist, nearly dropped his coffee mug when the communication came through. The message was clear, transmitted in perfect English through some kind of advanced translation system. Greetings, human leadership. We are representatives of the Galactic Federation, requesting immediate diplomatic conference regarding your interrogation methodologies. Within hours, a hastily assembled team of Earth's finest diplomats, scientists, and military advisors gathered at the secure facility in Nevada. The humans had been preparing for first contact with alien species for decades, but they had never expected the aliens to be concerned about their interrogation methodologies. What do you think they mean by that? Asked General Patricia Morrison, the military representative. Are they worried about our enhanced interrogation techniques? Those are classified programs. Dr. Weber shook his head. The message was very specific. They seem to think we have some kind of advanced torture technology. But our methods are actually quite primitive compared to what an advanced alien species might expect. The misguided negotiation. The meeting took place in a sterile conference room, with the aliens appearing via advanced holographic projection. Ambassador Tilvan's magnificent feathered form materialized across from the human delegation, his golden eyes filled with what appeared to be compassion and concern. Greetings, representatives of humanity, Tilvan began, his melodious voice carrying an unmistakable tone of diplomatic caution. We come not as conquerors, but as concerned neighbors in this galaxy. We have learned of your sophisticated approaches to prisoner management, and we hope to discuss alternatives. The human delegation exchanged confused glances. Secretary of State Jennifer Walsh leaned forward. Ambassador Tilvan, we appreciate your concern, but I'm not sure we understand. What specific practices are you referring to? Tilvan's feathers ruffled slightly with what the humans didn't recognize as embarrassment. We have documented evidence of torture chambers installed in virtually every human dwelling. White, oval-shaped containment units with liquid delivery systems and psychological manipulation devices. Dr. Weber's eyes widened with sudden understanding, but before he could speak, General Morrison interrupted. Ambassador, I can assure you that any enhanced interrogation techniques used by our military are strictly regulated and used only in extreme circumstances involving national security. The escalating confusion. Ambassador Tilvan's translator made concerned clicking sounds as he processed this response. General Morrison, are you suggesting that every human family participates in national security interrogations? Our reconnaissance indicates these torture chambers are present in private residences, including those inhabited by human juveniles. The human delegation fell silent, struggling to understand what the alien diplomat was describing. Secretary Walsh tried a different approach. Ambassador, could you be more specific about these chambers you've observed? Certainly, Tilvin replied, gesturing to his aide. Secretary Vorth activated a holographic display showing Lieutenant Crix's reconnaissance footage. As you can see, these white containment units are strategically positioned in small, tiled chambers, surrounded by various torture implements and chemical substances. Dr. Weber burst into laughter, unable to contain himself any longer. The entire human delegation turned to stare at him as he doubled over, tears streaming down his face. Ambassador Tilvin, he gasped between fits of laughter, I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding. The bathtub revelation. You're talking about bathtubs? Dr. Weber exclaimed, still chuckling. Those aren't torture chambers, they're for bathing. Personal hygiene. We fill them with warm water and soap to clean ourselves. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Tilvin's feathers went completely still, and Secretary Vortha's buzzing translation device seemed to malfunction momentarily. The alien diplomat's golden eyes blinked rapidly as he processed this information. Bathing? Tilvin repeated slowly. You mean, you voluntarily enter these containers? Of course. Secretary Walsh joined in, finally understanding the absurd situation. We use them for relaxation, cleanliness, stress relief. Some people take baths every day. It's one of life's simple pleasures. Ambassador Tilvin looked as though he might faint. His aide, Secretary Vorth, made a series of increasingly frantic buzzing sounds. But the chemical substances, Vorth stammered through his translator, the skin irritants, the temperature variations. Soap, shampoo, and bath salts, General Morrison explained, trying to maintain his composure. They help us get clean and smell nice. And we control the water temperature ourselves. Hot water is relaxing, cold water is refreshing. The diplomatic disaster. The realization of their colossal mistake hit the alien delegation like a meteor. Ambassador Tilvin's magnificent feathers drooped with embarrassment as the full scope of their misunderstanding became clear. They had mobilized the Galactic Federation's emergency protocols, assembled scientific committees, and prepared for potential military intervention, all because they didn't understand that humans like to sit in warm, soapy water. The reflective surfaces, Secretary Vorth whispered desperately, the forced observation of suffering. Mirrors, Dr. Weber replied gently. We like to see ourselves getting clean. Some people sing in the bath because they're happy and relaxed. Ambassador Tilvin buried his head in his feathered hands. Secretary Vorth, please prepare an immediate transmission to the Galactic Council. We need to revise our threat assessment of the human species. The awkward explanations. As the diplomatic session continued, the humans found themselves in the surreal position of explaining basic hygiene practices to advanced alien beings. They demonstrated how soap worked, explained the concept of hot water relaxation, and even showed videos of children happily playing with rubber ducks in bathtubs. So you're telling us, Ambassador Tilvin said weakly, that your species has evolved to find pleasure in activities that our xenobiologists interpreted as sophisticated torture? Exactly, Secretary Walsh confirmed. In fact, many humans consider a hot bath to be one of the most relaxing and enjoyable experiences possible. We have entire industries built around bath products, luxury bathtubs, and spa treatments. The ambassador's aide continued buzzing frantically. Sir, Professor Yendak is going to be mortified. His entire analysis was based on the assumption that humans were a torture-based civilization. Ambassador Tilvin sighed deeply, a sound that translated as profound embarrassment across species lines. This is going to require some very awkward communications with our military command as well. Captain Jorik has been preparing a rescue mission. The humans exchanged concerned glances. Rescue mission? Dr. Weber asked carefully. Oh no, Tilvin realized with growing horror. He's planning to liberate your people from their bathtubs. The rescue mission. The military response. Captain Jorik's massive form filled the command center of the Federation warship Righteous Fury. The 8-foot-tall warrior, with his armored exoskeleton and 4 powerful arms, had led successful liberation missions across 17 star systems. His reputation for freeing oppressed peoples from tyrannical regimes was legendary throughout the galaxy. Now, faced with evidence of systematic torture on an unprecedented scale, he was preparing for his most important mission yet. Tactical Officer Brent, he growled through his translator, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never failed a rescue operation. What's our intelligence on human defensive capabilities? The spider-like alien skittered across the command center's ceiling, his 8 eyes processing multiple data streams simultaneously. Captain, their technology appears primitive by galactic standards, but their torture methodology suggests a level of psychological sophistication that could make them unpredictable in combat. Captain Jorik's primary arms crossed while his secondary arms operated the holographic display controls. Show me the target zones again. How many victims are we looking at? The scale of the crisis. The display filled with a 3-dimensional map of a typical human city, with thousands of red dots indicating detected torture chambers. Each dot represented what the aliens believed to be a site of active human suffering. The scope was overwhelming. Entire neighborhoods appeared to be nothing but interconnected torture facilities. By the ancient warriors, breathed Lieutenant Kex, Jorik's second-in-command. The reptilian officer's scales shifted to a darker shade, indicating his emotional distress. Captain, there are millions of these installations. How did an entire species become so thoroughly committed to systematic torture? That's not our concern, Lieutenant, Jorik replied grimly. Our mission is liberation, not understanding. We go in fast, extract as many victims as possible, and establish safe zones for refugee processing. He turned to address the assembled strike team. Remember, these humans may be so traumatized by their experiences that they might not immediately understand we're trying to help them. Sergeant Pulix, a gelatinous being contained within a mobility suit, gurgled his agreement. Captain, should we expect resistance from the victims themselves? Stockholm Syndrome is common in prolonged torture situations. The stealth insertion. Under cover of Earth's natural atmospheric disturbances, Captain Jorik's strike team descended in cloaked insertion pods. Their target was a suburban neighborhood that intelligence had identified as having an unusually high concentration of torture chambers. Each house appeared to contain multiple victims, based on the energy signatures associated with regular use of the horrific devices. Team Alpha, you take the eastern residential block, Jorik commanded through his communication implant. Team Beta, sweep the western zone. Remember, these humans may be dangerous, their entire culture is built around inflicting suffering. Stay alert for booby traps and psychological manipulation tactics. The captain's pod touched down silently in the backyard of a 2-story house. Through his advanced optical sensors, he could detect multiple life forms inside, including what appeared to be 2 adult humans and several smaller ones, likely offspring being trained in their species' barbaric practices from an early age. The first rescue attempt. Captain Jorik's thermal sensors indicated that one of the torture chambers was currently active. Heat signatures suggested that a victim was trapped inside the device, with scalding liquid being poured over them. The captain's warrior instincts kicked into overdrive as he activated his emergency breach protocols. The bathroom wall exploded inward as Jorik's plasma cannon cleared an entry point. Through the smoke and debris, he could see exactly what his intelligence had warned him about: a human female, apparently in the final stages of a torture session, covered in foam and trapped in the white containment unit. Fear not, victim. Jorik bellowed through his translator as he charged forward. The Galactic Federation has come to liberate you from your tormentors. Mrs. Linda Patterson, who had been enjoying a peaceful bubble bath after a long day at work, screamed in absolute terror as an 8-foot-tall armored alien burst through her bathroom wall. She was naked, covered in soap suds, and completely unprepared for what appeared to be an alien invasion focused specifically on her bathtub. The misunderstood resistance. "Stay back!" Linda shrieked, grabbing her loofah as the only available weapon. "My husband has a gun." Captain Jorik interpreted this as evidence of the torture system's psychological effectiveness. The victim was so thoroughly broken that she was defending her own torture chamber. "Victim, you have been brainwashed by your captors. This device is designed to cause you suffering, not provide protection." "What are you talking about?" Linda screamed, trying to cover herself with a bath towel. "This is my bathroom. Get out of my house." The captain's tactical analysis confirmed his worst fears. The human had been so thoroughly conditioned that she believed the torture chamber was her personal property. The psychological manipulation was even more sophisticated than Professor Yendak had predicted. "I understand your confusion," Jorik said gently, extending one of his armored hands. "But you must trust me. No sentient being should be subjected to liquid torture and chemical burning. Come with me, and I will take you to safety." The cavalry arrives. The commotion had awakened Linda's husband, Bob, who came running toward the bathroom with a baseball bat. The sight that greeted him, his wife naked and terrified in the bathtub while a massive alien in combat armor stood in the wreckage of their bathroom wall, triggered every protective instinct he possessed. "Get away from my wife!" Bob shouted, charging forward with the bat raised. Captain Jorik's combat protocols activated automatically. This was clearly one of the torture operators, coming to reclaim his victim. The captain's secondary arms deployed a non-lethal stunning weapon while his primary arms prepared to restrain the aggressive human. "You will not harm this victim further," Jorik declared, easily disarming Bob and restraining him with specialized capture cables. "Your reign of terror ends today." "Daddy," came a small voice from the hallway as the Patterson children appeared, drawn by the noise. 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Tommy stared in wide-eyed amazement at the alien who had apparently captured their father. The expanding crisis. Captain Jorik's heart sank as he realized the full scope of the horror. The torture system was so integrated into human society that even the younglings were being raised to accept it as normal. These children showed no fear of the torture chamber, no understanding that their parents were victims rather than willing participants. "Children," he said as gently as his translator would allow, "you are safe now. No one will force you into the liquid torture device." Emma, displaying the remarkable adaptability of human children, stepped forward curiously. "Are you a real alien? Are you here to stop people from taking baths?" The innocence in her question nearly broke Jorik's warrior composure. These younglings had been so thoroughly indoctrinated that they couldn't even conceive of life without torture chambers. They had been taught to call the horrific process, taking baths, as if it were a normal, everyday activity. The communication breakdown. "Team Alpha to Captain Jorik," came the voice through his communication implant. "Sir, we're encountering massive resistance. The humans are defending their torture chambers with incredible determination. They keep screaming about privacy and personal space and demanding that we leave them alone." "Same here, Captain," reported Team Beta. "We've breached 17 facilities, but every single victim refuses to be rescued. They're claiming they were relaxing and enjoying themselves. The psychological conditioning is beyond anything we've seen." Captain Jorik looked around the destroyed bathroom, at the terrified family he had been trying to save, and felt the weight of military failure settling on his shoulders. "All teams, fall back to extraction point. We need to reassess our approach." As he prepared to withdraw, his communication system crackled with an incoming priority message from Ambassador Tilvan. The diplomatic transmission carried a tone of urgent embarrassment that made Jorik's combat instincts tingle with concern. "Captain Jorik, abort the rescue mission immediately. Repeat, abort all rescue operations. We have new information about the human bathing situation." Return to the ship for emergency briefing. Looking back at the Patterson family, Linda still clutching her towel, Bob tied up with alien restraints, and the children staring at him with mixtures of fear and fascination, Captain Jorik realized that this mission was about to become the most embarrassing military operation in his distinguished career. The truth about human hygiene habits was about to make the entire Galactic Federation look very, very foolish.